Let's make one thing absolutely clear. The world isn't run by feelings. It's conquered by those who keep their emotions in a chokehold. Weak men are slaves to their moods. They get sad and quit. They get angry and self-destruct. They get scared and run for cover. But high-value men? We don't have that luxury. Emotions are the enemy of progress, the killer of opportunity, and the downfall of those too fragile to control them. When you let feelings dictate your actions, you've already lost. The game doesn't care about your bad day. The competition doesn't care if you're tired. Success demands you show up with ice in your veins regardless of what emotional storm is raging inside. Real power comes from emotional mastery, the ability to feel without being controlled by those feelings. Weak men crumble under pressure because they're drowning in emotions. Winners, we channel that energy into laser focus. Anger becomes fuel. Fear becomes strategy. Doubt becomes motivation. Every high performer throughout history understood this fundamental truth. Emotions are information, not instructions. The moment you let feelings override logic is the moment you surrender your power. Business, war, and life itself reward those who can separate sentiment from strategy. Look at any loser's life, and you'll find a trail of emotional decisions, quitting jobs because they felt unappreciated, destroying relationships in moments of anger, making financial choices based on temporary excitement rather than long-term value. Meanwhile, winners operate on a different frequency entirely. We understand that discipline means doing what needs to be done regardless of how we feel about it. Motivation is for amateurs. Professionals work when they feel like it and when they don't. That's the difference between champions and spectators. The strongest men in history weren't those who felt the least. They were those who controlled the most. They recognized emotions as the ultimate test of willpower. Every temptation to slack off, every urge to react impulsively, every moment of self-doubt is an opportunity to prove your mental strength. Weakness whispers give in. Strength demands push forward. This isn't about suppressing your humanity, it's about elevating your potential by refusing to be ruled by temporary states of mind. At the highest levels, emotional control isn't just an advantage, it's the ultimate weapon. In negotiations, it's the man who stays calm who controls the deal. In competition, it's the athlete who masters their nerves who performs under pressure. In leadership, it's the commander who thinks clearly in chaos who brings his men home. Emotions have their place, but that place is never in the driver's seat of your life. The weak seek comfort in their feelings. The strong find power in their control. So ask yourself, are you making decisions based on facts or feelings? Are you acting on logic or impulse? Are you building your future or sabotaging it with emotional reactions? The path to greatness requires you to put feelings in their proper place. As advisors, not dictators. Master this and you master the game. Fail to learn this lesson and you'll forever be just another emotional casualty in the war for success. The choice is yours. Will you be ruled by emotions or will you rule your world? The human mind was designed to process information through logic and reason, yet most men surrender this gift to the fleeting tyranny of their emotions. Every major failure in your life can be traced back to a moment when feelings overruled rational thought, when temporary states of mind hijacked your better judgment. Emotional decisions are like building a house on quicksand. The structure may look impressive at first, but eventually the foundation gives way and everything comes crashing down. High-value men understand this fundamental truth, which is why they approach every critical decision with clinical detachment, analyzing facts, weighing options, and projecting outcomes rather than being swayed by the emotional weather of the moment. The weak believe following their heart is noble, but the strong know it's often the fastest path to self-destruction. Emotional decisions in business lead to financial ruin, in relationships lead to unnecessary conflict, and in personal development lead to stagnation. The pattern never changes. When emotion drives the car, logic winds up in the ditch. Consider how many promising ventures have been destroyed because someone made an emotional hire, bringing in a friend or family member who wasn't qualified. Think about how many potentially great partnerships have collapsed because someone took offense at a perceived slight rather than addressing the substantive issue. Reflect on how many investors have lost fortunes because fear made them sell during a dip or greed made them overextend during a peak. These aren't isolated incidents. They're the inevitable results of allowing emotion to sit in the captain's chair. The stock market doesn't care if you're attached to a particular company. Your competition doesn't care if you're having personal problems. The world operates on objective reality, not subjective feelings, which is why emotional decisions create such catastrophic misalignment with how things actually work. Winners play chess, seeing several moves ahead, while emotional players are stuck in checkers, reacting to whatever just happened. Anger might be the most destructive emotional decision maker of all, transforming otherwise intelligent men into impulsive fools who burn bridges, sabotage relationships, and make career-ending mistakes. How many times have you seen someone send that email in rage only to regret it permanently? How many physical altercations started because someone couldn't control their temper, turning minor incidents into life-altering consequences? The emotional man thinks expressing anger is strength, when in reality it's the ultimate display of weakness, a public admission that you've lost control of yourself. Contrast this with the high-value man who feels the surge of anger like anyone else but channels it into precise action rather than mindless reaction. He understands that anger undirected is just self-inflicted damage waiting to happen. The difference isn't in feeling emotion, but in what you do with it. One path leads to power, the other to ruin. Fear-based decisions create their own special brand of failure, convincing men to abandon promising paths right before breakthroughs, to sell assets right before they appreciate, to quit right before success would have materialized. The emotional mind treats fear as a stop sign when it should be viewed as a detour sign, an indication that the path requires more skill, not that the journey should be abandoned. Many of history's greatest missed opportunities were created by men who allowed fear to veto logic, who chose the safety of inaction over the risk required for extraordinary rewards. The high-value man recognizes fear as nature's way of showing him where growth is possible. He leans into it while others retreat, systematically converting apprehension into advantage. This isn't about being fearless, but about making fear inform your preparation rather than dictate your participation. Love and attachment might be the most socially celebrated emotional decisions, but they're equally responsible for more poor choices than perhaps any other feeling. How many men have stayed in toxic relationships long past their expiration date because of emotional attachment? How many have poured money into failing family businesses because of sentimental obligation? How many have compromised their standards, their boundaries, or their futures because the heart wanted what the mind knew was unwise? The weak see this as noble, but the strong recognize it as self-sabotage dressed up in romantic clothing. High-value men approach even love with clear eyes, understanding that the most caring thing you can do for someone is often the least emotional, setting boundaries, enforcing standards, and sometimes walking away entirely. Emotional love is possessive and needy, while logical love is empowering and growth-oriented, even positive. Emotions like excitement and overconfidence can lead to spectacular failures when allowed to drive decision-making. The startup world is littered with corpses of businesses that scaled too fast because founders got high on early success. The fitness world is full of injured athletes who pushed too hard too fast, caught up in the emotion of progress. The investment world has countless examples of men who abandoned their strategy because euphoria convinced them this time is different. Emotion creates blind spots where logic should be providing clarity. The high-value man enjoys positive emotions but never lets them overwrite his systems, his standards, or his strategic planning. He knows peaks and valleys are part of the journey, but the compass must always point true north, regardless of the emotional weather. The solution isn't to eliminate emotion, but to put it in its proper place, as data, not as decision maker. Your feelings contain valuable information about your values, your boundaries, and your preferences, but they make terrible CEOs of your life. The high-value man creates space between stimulus and response where logic gets the final vote. He institutionalizes checks and balances, mandatory waiting periods for big decisions, advisory councils of trusted rational voices, predetermined criteria that must be met regardless of how he feels in the moment. This systematic approach transforms emotion from a liability into a strategic asset while avoiding the catastrophic failures that come from knee-jerk reactions. The weak believe their emotions are truth. The strong know they're just inputs in a much larger calculation. Master this distinction, and you master your destiny. The cold, hard truth remains. Emotions are the chains that keep ordinary men locked in mediocrity, while the elite operate with razor-sharp precision. Weakness clings to feelings like a security blanket, making excuses and justifying failures. But you're built differently. When others are drowning in their emotional drama, you'll be steps ahead, clear-eyed, calculating, and in complete control. This isn't about suppressing your humanity, it's about transcending the limitations that hold back 99% of men. The path to power isn't paved with good intentions or heartfelt excuses. It's built through ironclad discipline and bulletproof mindset. Right now, somewhere your competition is making emotional decisions that will become their downfall. Will you join them in weakness? Or will you stand apart as a man who commands his mind like a general commands his troops? The choice is yours. But remember, history isn't written by the sensitive souls who felt like it. It's written by the unstoppable few who did what needed to be done, regardless of how they felt. Now go out there and show the world what true strength looks like. Weakness clings to feelings like a security blanket, making excuses and justifying failures. But you're you're built differently. When others are drowning in their emotional drama, you'll be steps ahead, clear-eyed, calculating, and in complete control. This isn't about suppressing your humanity. It's about transcending the limitations that hold back 99% of men. The path to power isn't paved with good intentions or heartfelt excuses. It's built through ironclad discipline and bulletproof mindset. Right now, somewhere, your competition is making emotional decisions that will become their downfall. Will you join them in weakness? Or will you stand apart as a man who commands his mind like a general commands his troops? The choice is yours. But remember, history isn't written by the sensitive souls who felt like it. It's written by the unstoppable few who did what needed to be done, regardless of how they felt. Now go out there and show the world what true strength looks like. Emotions are for the weak. This isn't just a statement. It's a battle cry for those who refuse to be slaves to their own fleeting feelings. The modern world wants you soft, compliant, drowning in a sea of self-pity and validation seeking. They want you to believe that crying into your latte while scrolling through Instagram is strength. But let me tell you the raw, unfiltered truth. Real strength is domination. It's about looking your emotions dead in the eye and telling them, you will not control me. The weak crumble at the first sign of discomfort. They cancel plans because they're not feeling it. They quit jobs because they're stressed. They sabotage relationships over temporary moods. But the strong, the elite, we operate on a higher frequency. We understand that emotions are nothing more than background noise, a distraction from the ultimate mission of power, success, and unshakable discipline. Think about the greatest men in history, conquerors, inventors, billionaires. Do you think Alexander the Great stopped to cry about his feelings before charging into battle? Did Steve Jobs waste time worrying if his team liked him when he was revolutionizing technology? Absolutely not. They harness their emotions like fuel, turning every ounce of fear, anger, and passion into pure, unstoppable action. That's the difference between winners and losers. Losers let emotions dictate their reality. Winners dictate reality to their emotions. You want to be a winner? Then you better start treating your feelings like the enemy, because the moment you let them take the wheel, you've already lost. The weak will call this toxic. They'll say you need to process your emotions. You need to be vulnerable. But ask yourself, when has vulnerability ever built empires? When has crying in therapy ever closed $1 million deal? The truth is, the world doesn't care about your trauma. The world rewards results. And if you're sitting around waiting to feel motivated before you take action, you'll die mediocre. Discipline isn't about feeling like doing something. It's about doing it regardless of how you feel. That's the warrior mindset. That's how you ascend. So the next time you feel doubt creeping in, the next time fear tries to paralyze you, remember, emotions are for the weak. And you? You were built for more. Emotions are for the weak. This is the unshakable truth that separates the winners from the losers, the conquerors from the conquered. The modern world wants you to believe that feelings are sacred, that vulnerability is strength. But that's nothing but a lie designed to keep you soft, dependent, and easily controlled. Real power comes from absolute mastery over your emotions, not submission to them. The weak man lets a bad day ruin his week, a rejection destroy his confidence, a setback make him quit. But the strong man? He doesn't have time for self-pity. He crushes doubt under his boot, channels anger into action, and turns fear into fuel. History isn't written by men who cried in the corner. It's written by those who stared adversity in the face and laughed. You think Elon Musk built empires by wallowing in his feelings? You think warriors won battles by stopping to process their trauma? No, they won because they refused to be slaves to their emotions. The world doesn't care about your excuses, your bad moods, or your fragile ego. It rewards those who act, who dominate, who refuse to let anything, especially their own weakness, stand in their way. So if you're still letting emotions dictate your life, you've already lost. The choice is simple. Either control your mind or remain a peasant in the kingdom of the strong. Emotions are for the weak. And if you're listening to this, I know you're not weak. So stop acting like it. Dominate or be dominated. There is no middle ground.